The scene is set for New York by Night's Camarilla venue. Two Kindred in positions of power who wear far, far too many titles and hats for their likings have a long overdue one-on-one. Dr. Softly's domain in one of the faculty lounges. And he waits for Mr. Silas to take a seat before he takes his own, because Mr. Silas is, of course, the seneschal.
Right, sorry, I ran into brief technical difficulties and will need to reload the Hangout.
Ah, well, then in that case I'll do some light advertisement. So, if you're interested in this, if you like Vampire the Masquerade, look up on Facebook, Living World of Darkness New York. There's a couple of other games. Living World of Darkness New York has the only multi-venue game. It's got Camarilla and Sabat, but as well as this, it also has changelings, werewolves, demons from classic World of Darkness. And they all interact there to some degree. Players are, of course, being recruited at various different times. So just give it a quick look up on Facebook and see if you join us. So right now we're having the seneschal, Mr. Silas, who is also the warden, and the primogen of Nosferatu, meeting with, I think if I've got all the titles there, I think he's with the only other person who has even more titles. Dr. Softly, primogen of Darusha, keeper of Elysium, hound, and ever so reluctant harpy.
Right, so a nice place that you got set up here, Dr. Softly.
Yes, I hope somebody filled you in on what happened with Artis and Paragus.
Yes, I go and take a weekend away from the city for just a few days, and I come back and everyone's dead.
Well, we've thankfully got to stop Marquez affecting. Not that we were exactly telling him everything.
I got sent a request to cover up the breaches for that one, which
Yes.
has all pretty much been sorted. I had to go and chat, but the incident was kept together by top men.
Good. Just to be clear, we were going to pull back, but unfortunately, Artis didn't hear or didn't heed the call by Sheriff to pull back, and when they saw him charging, one of their Zamiski started doing something very unmasquerade friendly. So we just had to go in and put them down. But at least that issue was resolved. How is your position of seneschal treating you?
Fairly smoothly. It's the warden position that's causing all the trouble at the moment.
Yes, well, I'm quite happy to leave that one entirely in your hands, generally speaking.
Yes, some people decided it would be smart to go and rile up the fallen.
Well, that is there from. On that note, although I don't have huge contacts in the Anarch state, continuing to try and corroborate who they are. No one's heard of them so far. Now they mentioned a few cities, so they could be Nomad Pack, but still. Now, Pont did say he had heard them referring to each other to a degree as Canaanites, and that term is more associated with the Sabbat. However, as I pointed out to him, there is a sizable portion of the Anarch community who uses such terminology. But I was hoping to enlist your help to a degree. Now, you know Rose has unusual abilities.
Yes, I'm quite familiar.
And she can tell if somebody's lying. Now, as well acquainted, dealing with the Sausage King, you can share the powers of your blood to a degree, cloak them. If I'm thinking their Baron wishes to meet with the Bruiser Primogen, I say we arrange a meeting for the two of them while we stand in the sidelines, hidden, They'll be behind a desk, simple messenger program open, and with a few smartphones. As he asks question, we can forward on our observations. As I said, there's a few things. It could be very well just be a group of anarchs, in which case they've just simply been insulting, coming in, declaring themselves Baron. Could be Sabat. Could be a bunch of Kaitif trying to come to New City Masquerade as anarchs to better their lot. It could be under the sway of Setites, or as I'm the theories I'm not discounting, the Prince, or the Prince and yourself, or some elders from outside the city, perhaps Jan Peter Zun, or somebody else, goes off and hires a coterie to masquerade as anarchs, make sure we're actually doing background checks properly. Bit of a test run, I suppose. I'm not going to get one outside possibilities.
Well, it could be any number of things. This still requires investigation. It's not like we don't need a certain Ajax delivered to some certain creatures.
Well, that's a problem for the anarchs. Still, if they are sincere in who they are and the accord can be struck up, well, when it comes to the demons, right now I'd be inclined to say that's their problem, unless there's some way they're willing to really compensate us. But still, if we're able to confirm things about them and they are anarchs, and in due fate will be willing to ally with us against the Sabat when they're making their next incursions, and the Prince is willing to tolerate them, they could be useful. But more information has to be gathered for a decision to be made. It is what it is.
Well, we'll see if we can make the best of a bad situation.
Now, I think it's time for me to hit the rather more awkward subject, because we haven't had a chat since the night of Voorhees' short-lived descent. I had limited contact with him prior to that point, but the rest of the night, I saw by the end of it what you had issue with. He was, now, whether or not Artis was a friend, a prince shouldn't have to go around breaching the rules of Elysium to try and instill it. If he was too heavy-handed, I would have still been upset, but if he had walked just outside Elysium and dominated Artis there, although I would have on a personal level been upset, on a professional level it wouldn't have angered me as much. So I can see where you're coming from. I still can't agree with your actions that night, but I can understand. So I'll be clear on that one. I don't know.
Go on, I sense there's something more that you want to say.
Well, I don't know if you want to talk about it anymore. What happened. Let's put it bluntly, the prince obviously needed your support to gain his new position, but he is the lawful prince now, as I will still always contest that even though he was a bad prince, and a very short-lived one, Prince Voorhees was the rightful prince at the time.
At the time, temporarily, but at the same time, there's a way princes come to power. That's typically by going and making all the bargains and requirements beforehand. It's not the type of seat that you should just be thrown into. That's how it ends up when that happens.
It can at times. Now, I wouldn't question such a respected elder as Jan Peterzoon on these things, but I personally think if he had given his endorsement, lent some political aid, or, well, to put it bluntly, if with a nod from Jan Peterzoon and a little bit of wheeling and dealing, Voorhees couldn't have sealed the deal, it would have been clear he wouldn't be able to hold the position anyway. But that cannot be changed.
I didn't exactly want Voorhees to be killed. I wanted him to fight a little bit for the position. I mean, him having to deal with his rebellious, somewhat warden would actually have helped strengthen his spot.
He could have gone off and, well, Even if he hadn't gone for going to voting route, he could have accepted. However, if he had discreetly had a few words with a few people, made sure he had the backing. I'm sure he had some words beforehand with the Malkavian Primogen. And I wouldn't be surprised if you as well were aware that Jan Peterson was back in town, but not making his presence particularly felt.
Hmm.
So it wasn't a huge surprise, but, well, Prince Voorhees showed he wasn't up for the job by his actions.
Well, then the icebreaker was very, very quick to capitalize on the situation.
I'm still holding to that boon. I still managed to clear out everyone except the Primogene Council short notice. I wasn't happy with your visitor. Think I made that clear.
Oh,
I think you
perfectly.
understand why, but still holding you to it. And to be clear, as a good little keeper of Elysium, I did point out to the prince that I had no idea who this person was, and pointed out the potential threats. I was expecting you to be coming in with maybe a Giovanni or a Setite or someone of that ilk. It was a bit of a surprise, but
Well, you can never find those ones when you need them.
such is the way. But there are some new arrivals at least. I don't know what the change in the Tremere has been as a wider clan, but I've heard tell that their numbers are growing. The pyramid is obviously a little more comfortable sending people aside from Mr. Thursday.
Thursday is kept mostly to himself, so it'll be good to see if he sings or swims.
Outside of the coterie, as he's, well, to be fair, showing up Primogene Council if you're the only member of your clan present in the city, and you have two coterie members who are on the council, yes, it's not exactly necessarily needed. But how goes... how should I put it? The Toreador have a new Primogen, Ambrosia.
Ambrosia's yet to have a chat with me.
She is... It's clear that Noid and Marquez particularly offer any training, or worse yet, he might have actually offered a training that might explain her political demeanor. It's somewhat...
It's still a shame that Marquez decided to suddenly go nuts.
Well, I think he knew we were keeping in with the dark about one or two things, but we, as much as could be afforded, whatever else about him, he was the Primogen of a clan. But I'm glad that on the night where he had his war council, that myself and Green decided not to enter. He might have been up to something that night. We don't know. Perhaps we'll never know.
Mysteries that will be forever lost in the sands of time.
One thing I'm a little concerned about, you might be able to help me. You were one of those who helped conquer the city.
No.
Or you were... Oh, okay, I thought you were...
I had a very respected elder, that Clan Nosferat, who sent over to help with that. Unfortunately, he died quite, not that long ago, but quite a while ago. And I was the one sent to be his replacement.
Very good. Now, I'm looking in through my own ways, but as I say, I was giving interest as well. Obviously, we can't trust any of the background checks Marquez had. I had a few words with this Ambrosia, and she claims she has always lived in this city. Obviously, if she was on Manhattan, but there's not as many people who are here for the conquest of the city around. I'm making some inquiries, double check exactly what happened. I assumed, being a Toreador, and her saying that she had grown up in the city, she was one of the... I do believe there was a Toreador Prince of Manhattan at one stage, who held the champion the Carmella cause. I assumed it was one of her brood, but she didn't seem to exactly get what I meant.
Hmm. Well, it's difficult for everyone to keep track of everything, but I think she's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. You know how the Toreador like to play their little side games, and we're big, serious people. We don't play games.
Hmm. There are two other members of the clan. Victor, he is the one I'm most likely to trust at the moment. Michael Walker, member of my own clan, who I met in New Orleans for a while, some time back, and he has travelled with him for some time. So that wholesome away from me. Mr. Peck is fledgling, very quiet. I'm
Mr. Peck
surprised.
likes, once again, to keep to himself.
I'm surprised he hasn't been raised to a neonate. He did help out at LaGuardia dealing with Marquez. Ambrosia, I understand, was previously held in the hospitality, whether she liked it or not, by Senesco Voorhees.
I might have to go and have a check again in Ventry Tower, see if they got anybody else hiding in the closets.
Well, the security has been improved, but as with anything, if someone is determined enough and skilled enough and has enough time, there is no security measure that can stop somebody.
Hey, plenty of people have done the Ventry Tower waltz.
True, it has been improved since, however. But we shall see. Like I said, someone with enough determination, skill, and time, no barrier can stop them. Which, for Kindred, is fortunate. We have plenty of time. All it requires skill, which one can learn, and determination.
Changing the subject somewhat, have you gotten busy setting up the new Elysiums, or will we be going back to some of the old ones again?
Well, the Elysium we had where our prince had the vote, that was very pointedly Calbros's old Elysium. Make a very big distinction, not terribly subtle, I'm afraid, symbolically, that, well, things would be different. That it needs to be more.
An interesting Elysium spot, that one, if my albino pet is a bit depressed.
True. But I am setting up a Elysium in Brooklyn at the Prince's request, where the rack is, of course, but we won't exactly be having the Primogen Council gathering as a whole for there. Putting the last finishing touches on it, and, well, after that point, when the Primogen Council meets, our Elysiums will be temporary places. Make it harder for the enemy, because after the Brooklyn Elysium is attacked and one of us dies from the Primogen Council, that is a difficulty, it is a tragedy. If the entire Primogen Council and the Prince who are in attendance get wiped out, even if one or two Primogen aren't present and have their hands present, that would be potentially devastating and could lead to the loss of the city.
And I'm not exactly wanting to give them their wooden conditions in one fell swoop.
Exactly. But I have a few locations, and there are areas myself, the sheriff, and the rest of the hounds are keeping in mind, not necessarily for Elysiums, but see if the Sabat try and set up. If you want a large group of people hidden, well, there's a substantial number in the city, but there are locations that give a little bit more opportunity.
We still need to be focusing on battening down the hatches, so to speak, the general fortifications. I mean, I'm fairly prepared with quite a few areas, but there are a lot of areas to cover, and a chink in one area can expose a chink in the next.
exactly. But unfortunately, the loss of Artis and Paragus, they were skilled fighters. Perhaps could have done
Yes.
working together a bit with people a bit
Mm.
better, but that is that is not something that can be changed now.
Mm. Well, I'm still quite annoyed at their loss, but we have to flow with things.
Yes. Unfortunately, when it comes to Diego Marquez, we don't know if he sent any information their way, and he may well have. Obviously, I didn't go tell him where my haven was, but he knows where my domain is. But I think they'll find it awkward if they tried to come looking for me.
Well, I
Um,
don't exactly want you getting put underneath someone else's arm and run off with.
oh,
What's the count on that one now? Two, three times?
2 times. And, well, Mr. DuPont's come out the best of it so far. Just cost him a few boons. Um, Paragos, on the other hand, well, but that is what it is. I don't know what the attraction is. I mean, I can handle myself in a fight, but when you're staked, there's not much what you can do. And when a combat focused Gangrel Ancilla decides to whisk you up at short notice without caring the sheriff's there, well, I'm just glad I received some help afterwards.
Any reason why he would do something so stupid?
We were asking some questions he didn't want answered. And he decided to throw a
How
tantrum.
is how is a certain purple kindred doing?
She's doing well. I informed her she is no longer a probationary sect member, though she is a fledgling. I want her to know she's progress made. Her education's going well. She, well, I informed her that of the rules regarding dealing with other interest groups, shall we say. She understood. She'd previously had contact with some of them, but now she understands the new rules. She may come speaking with you. We shall have to see. Um, but the rules are the rules. She's getting out a bit more. She's getting a grasp of obfuscate, which
Good.
will certainly help. She certainly has to. Anyway, she'll
Yes, that
focus on her
skill's
business.
becoming quite popular. It's coming to the point that eventually, if we do get this butt arriving, they're not going to be able to find anyone.
Mhm. Well, they have a few clans who are skilled in all specs. I'm sure they'll give us a run for our money, but if we can lead them into a few traps. What I wouldn't
So,
do for a
any prisoners from that last batch? All ashed.
last batch. Yes, there were. We haven't gotten around to doing interrogation scenes of them. There was a Zamiski and a well, I believe is a Zamiski and a Lasombra.
Hmm. We need to get the interrogation sorted out for that one. I especially dislike Zamisi floating around our city, and where there's one, there's usually another.
True enough. You
I heard a vague rumor that there was an old clan floating around some time ago.
that would be
That caught my
very
attention.
unusual, especially on this continent.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That might just be that you know how rumors go.
Yes, I've heard this. There's even some unusual bloodlines show up in libraries. I wouldn't hold stock in those. I spend a lot of time in them. Just me and some other bruja.
Yes, of course.
How fair is Goblin?
He's What can I say? He's grown his mushrooms, grown his mice. He's got himself a nice little spot. He seems quite content, though. I'm a little bit disappointed I don't really have much for him to do.
Hmm, such as it is. Seems my clan's growing in numbers, and the Tremere. I think there's going to be one or two more Gangrel. I might try and contact a few elders in other cities, see if they might start planting ideas. Now they've got the Bruges numbers up, and hopefully will continue rising. See if any of them know any promising young Nosferatu who want to go to a city with opportunities.
Well, I could do with some a bit more of an influx of my people. I don't really want to have to go through the effort of making more.
They require time to train. Luckily, with Rose, she's received training previously. It's just a little bit of refinement and focus on our particular society.
Do we have any information on who Asaya was? Who that individual disappeared to? Where he disappeared to?
Not as such.
I don't really know their clan particularly well to be able to kind of have any idea of how they typically treat their newbies.
They're very solitary. It's odd that they do embrace because they usually just seem to train them over a long period and then go their separate ways. They don't really have much ties. They're a bloodline, but that is it. It is said, and given their skill in obtenebration, I would believe it, that they're descended from the La Sombra.
Ah, in which case, another good question is, where the hell's Siggy run off to again? He keeps popping up and then disappearing.
I believe there was Siegfried who was going to introduce himself with the Ventru, or perhaps he's been sent off on some errand task. Out of character, he's left the city, but Dr. Schaff is confirmed on that.
Either way, I believe it's getting to the point that perhaps sometime this month we need to organise a nice open Elysium. I know things are under threat at the moment, but it's still something that needs to be done, lest we let fear rule our lives.
True enough. However, well, at least in Brooklyn, that one being permanent, word's starting to get around. I haven't given away its exact location, but if we have that open Elysium, we can expect a few of these anarchs to probably have heard.
Well, it should be interesting if some of them decide to pop up. I've been debating sending some individuals off to Staten Island to go collect a few.
Oh, you're thinking of taking that approach?
Well, like I said, I want Ajax's head on a platter at this point in time.
Ah, so we might be moving to that level of diplomacy. Interesting. But I suppose that would ease things with the inhabitants of the Bronx.
Well, these things is also to make sure that a certain pyrokinetic individual gets off my back. He's kind of annoyed at having been murdered.
As long as they don't show up at the Elysium.
I would
so
really wish that they didn't show up. Yes, apparently they get better.
Well, they are kindred, and although I'm still wary, there is no firm evidence that they are not, as they claim, anarchs, though I'm not giving up on getting actual confirmation or denial. If they show up at Elysium, they will be protected by the rules. But once they leave, if you want to follow them back to exactly where their haven is, that's nothing to do with me. Cynical.
Yes, thank you for that completely fine pointing out that what happens outside of Elysium has nothing to do.
Oh, you're well aware. Hey, if you want to tamper with their sat nav and have it drive through Central Park, that's not my problem.
Well, things seem to be also fairly quiet on the Central Park front, which is good to say, at least.
Yes, I'd rather not
Well, they've
have
got
any.
their own things that they do, and unfortunately, their own things that they do require none of the attention of anybody else to be involved in.
So you're saying that this demon, he was killed, but he came back, is possession of a body, perhaps?
Well, that's pretty much as close to hitting the nail on the head as you're going to get.
Oh, if they'd rebuilt the body, that would be, well, far more impressive, but at least you know what they look like.
I've already met one that can do that.
Oh dear. Tell
Which
me,
is,
do you can they be well? I assume they can be dealt with in some way in the future, but we've got this at bat to worry about. As long as they're not giving us problems, do you want to deal with a few impolite anarchs? I'm not going to cry for them.
mm, well, making sure everything flows smoothly. I believe I've already covered the general list of with the fallen that if the Sabbat show up, they're not us. Free to murder them. I've already made sure the same requirements are known with the lupines. They're quite happy to murder the Sabbat, and they know that there's a little bit too much effort involved to try and murder us. This is a good thing. Changelings, the fairies, not too sure for them at the moment.
Have you actually managed to spot some of them then?
Trust me, I literally have to have their names written down. There's something about these individuals that make this very, very difficult.
Possibly, maybe some ability similar to obfuscate. I'm sure you're more familiar with the very specifics than myself. I've seen the level of your ability, but you could disappear as we're both aware, make me forget you were here. I'll be sitting here wondering why you're late until you reappear again. Perhaps if one had high enough levels of auspex, they could similarly be able to see through whatever obfuscation they're using.
Mm. It's rather annoying abilities. It's I have to keep notes during the meetings because once they go, everything's all muddled and fuddled.
Hmm. Starts to make one wonder.
Mm.
Exactly, we could have run into him several times. Very useful. It's a shame we. Does it seem to affect each other?
No, I think they're fine interacting with each other. I haven't seen them have any fuddle moments when greeting each other. They always know exactly who each other one is, whereas I have to go through a pack of cards and try to figure out who's who again.
That's a shame. Oh, I wonder. There, perhaps you could broach the subject with one of them more suitable, but there were tales amongst the Ravnos, more in medieval times. Not most Ravnos know what you're talking about, but that skill with chemistry, their clan discipline is. Back then, one would always have to enter a blood bond with receiving some of the blood of a fairy to be able to learn. Obviously, then they're able to teach each other later on and could teach somebody else. But if there is, now this is very old and, as I said, not recognized by most current day Ravnos, but if there is truth to that, I wonder if their abilities to make people forget them, I wonder if that could be trained as a discipline. If it could, it would definitely help with upholding the masquerade.
Well, that's a good point. Something worth researching.
Well, is there anything I can do for you, Miss Aniskell?
I think we've covered all the basics. Still have to organize a few meetings here and there and some but more patrols around now. I think it's after these recent troubles, I think. Making sure that everything's nice and tight and secure is going to be a top priority.
Well, it always is. But let's see, Dr. Softy will hand him a book and a parcel. The prince suggested that well, perhaps this time we're doing the book code. It will be individual and specific between each member of the Primaging Council. So, well, with Marquez, obviously we can't use the last one, and if we're redoing it, when it comes to holding Elysiums for the prince to meet with people, or for having official functions at the Elysium, for the Primogen to be in council to be informed on the day, meet with members of our clan at different points, and an hour beforehand make their way to the Elysium. Keep it close to the chest for protection of all involved.
I do like this system that we're putting together.
Yes, and rest assured, when it comes to, well, we'll have this place in Brooklyn, we, let's say, have to have things done in particular ways, but when it comes to Primaging Council meetings, well, I might have to have a word with you, but it won't be our last trip into the sewers. Nice contained environment, and when the local Nosferatu are happy with the arrangements, it can make quite a formidable location for the enemy to attack.
Excellent. Well, on that side, we're got a nice little side project we're working together, so they're going to be a little bit more secure.
Well, rest assured, we are not Senescal Voorhees. The Bruges are happy to wade through the shit if it means the difference between final death and having a nice peaceful meeting.
Good, good. Well, I think we all have a lot to go and do. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. I might have to have another invitation evening down at the penthouse, but I'll let you know when I decide to put that together.
Thank you. Dr. Softly will bow very respectfully because he is the Senescal amongst his many other titles. And I think we'll end the scene there.